I never imagined my own daughter would slap me so violently at the Christmas table, knocking me to the floor in front of the entire family, just so her mother-in-law could take my place at the table. Something inside me broke forever. That night, I made a decision that would change our lives forever. But before continuing, leave a comment in the comments. Where are you watching this video from? We love to hear how far our stories go. Oh, and don't forget to check if you're already subscribed to the channel. My name is Teresa Fuentes, and I've spent my life building a business empire from scratch. I lost my beloved husband Jose 6 years ago, and since then, my daughter Alicia has become the center of my world. At least that's what I thought, until the evening of December 24th of last year. That evening, I arrived at Alicia's house with my heart overflowing with joy. I had bought special gifts for my grandchildren Diego and Sofia, and I had brought a bottle of rare añejo tequila that I saved for special occasions. The house was beautifully decorated. Golden lights, red poinsettia arrangements, and the aroma of turkey with mole poblano sauce filled the air. Everything seemed perfect for a family night. "Grandma Teresa!" My grandchildren shouted, running toward me. Diego, 13, was almost my size, and Sofia, 10, still loved hanging around my neck like she had when she was a baby. Their sincere hugs were the only moment of genuine happiness I would experience that night. Rodrigo, my son-in-law, greeted me with a forced smile. There was always something in his eyes that bothered me, as if he were constantly calculating the value of every person in the room. "Hello, Doña Teresa. How nice to have you here." Alicia appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron, but her greeting was distant, almost mechanical. "Hi, Mom. Can you leave the coats in the guest room?" I noticed something odd in the air, a tension I couldn't quite place. The table was set for 8, but there were only 5 of us. "Are we expecting anyone else?" I asked, scanning the extra places. "Yes," Alicia replied without looking me in the eye. "Rodrigo's parents are coming over for dinner. It's the first time they've spent Christmas with us." Something about the way she said it unsettled me. I'd known my daughter for 42 years and knew when she was hiding something. When Veronica and Eduardo Salazar arrived, everything changed. Alicia transformed, completely becoming attentive and helpful in a way she rarely showed me. "Doña Veronica, what a pleasure to have you here. Please come in." Veronica Salazar, a 70-year-old woman with perfectly dyed hair and jewelry that was too expensive for a family dinner, walked in as if she were doing everyone a favor with her presence. Eduardo, a burly man with an arrogant expression, barely acknowledged me with a nod. We sat at the table, and I took my usual place where I've always sat at family celebrations, at the head of the table next to Alicia. It had occupied that spot for years, ever since Jose died, and family dinners moved to my daughter's house. But when Veronica approached, Alicia gave me a look I'll never forget. Cold, calculating, cruel. "Mom, I need you to get up." "How?" I asked, confused. "That spot is for Doña Veronica. She's our guest of honor." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Alicia, honey, I've always sat here. This is my place in this family." The tension was palpable. Rodrigo looked at the floor, uncomfortable. My grandchildren had frozen their forks suspended in midair. Veronica stood observing the scene with a mixture of discomfort and satisfaction. "Mom, don't complicate things." "Move?" "I don't understand, Alicia. What's going on here?" That's when it happened. Alicia approached me, placed her hands on my shoulders, and pushed me so hard I lost my balance. My 68-year-old body gave out, and I fell heavily to the floor in front of the entire family. The silence that followed was deafening. My grandchildren shouted my name. Eduardo stood up, surprised. Veronica remained motionless, but I saw something in her eyes that made my blood run cold. Satisfaction. From the floor, humiliated and in pain, I heard the words that would change everything forever. This place belongs to my mother-in-law. Move. At that moment, as I lay sprawled on the cold floor, something inside me broke. Not just my dignity, but something much deeper. The image I had of my daughter, the unconditional love I felt for her, all disintegrated like a sandcastle. Diego and Sophia helped me up, their faces filled with confusion and sadness. "Are you okay, Grandma?" Sophia whispered, tears in her eyes. "I'm fine, my little one." I lied, stroking her hair. But inside, a storm had begun to brew. Alicia had already sat down at the table as if nothing had happened. Veronica took my chair without saying a word. Rodrigo poured the tequila with nervous movements, avoiding my gaze. I sat in a side chair like a second-class guest in what used to be my own family. Throughout dinner, I watched Alicia address Veronica with a respect she'd never shown me. I watched Rodrigo hang on his father's every word as if Eduardo were the source of all wisdom. I watched as my grandchildren looked at me sadly, not understanding why their mother had humiliated Grandma. And as I watched, I made a decision that would change our lives forever. Dinner passed in a tense atmosphere. Every bite tasted like betrayal. Every laugh between Alicia and Veronica pierced my soul like sharp knives. My grandchildren tried to fill the silence with innocent comments about school, but even they realized that something fundamental had changed in our family dynamic. "Diego got excellent grades this quarter," I commented, trying to regain some normalcy. "Oh, really?" Alicia replied, without even looking at me, focused on pouring more tequila for Veronica. "Doña Veronica, would you like some more turkey?" It was as if I'd become invisible. For 42 years, I had raised that woman. I had taught her values, principles, given her everything I had and more, and now she treated me like an uncomfortable stranger at her own table. When we finished dinner, I quietly excused myself. "I'm going to the bathroom for a moment." No one answered. They didn't even look up from their liquor glasses. I walked slowly toward the bathroom, but my mind was already racing. Once inside, I locked the door and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had red eyes, not from tears, but from a cold rage that was beginning to crystallize into pure determination. I took my phone out of my pocket and started dialing numbers I knew by heart. The first call was to Ricardo Vasquez, my personal lawyer of 30 years. His sleepy voice answered on the fourth ring. "Mrs. Teresa, it's Christmas Eve." "What's your emergency?" "Ricardo, I need you to prepare documents tomorrow to revoke all of Alicia's powers in the company. Everyone without exception." There was a long pause. Ricardo knew the structure of my business perfectly. "Mrs. Teresa, are you sure that would mean—" "I know exactly what that means. I also want you to cancel all the guarantees I have signed in your name. The house, the car, the corporate credit cards, everything." "What happened?" "My daughter just showed me who she really is, and I'm going to show her who I am." The second call was to Luisa Mendez, my accountant and financial director. She also knew every financial transaction the family made. "Luisa, I'm sorry to bother you at this time. I need you to freeze all joint accounts with Alicia early tomorrow. Also suspend her salary and executive benefits." "Is there a legal issue, Doña Teresa?" "No, Luisa. I'm just taking back control of what belongs to me." The third call was the most important. I dialed Carolina Perez, my second in command at the company, a loyal woman who's been with me from the beginning. "Carolina, sorry for the time. Could you come to the office early tomorrow? I need you to remove all of Alicia's personal belongings from her desk." "Are you firing her?" "She's no longer the CEO. You'll be taking her place starting tomorrow. Prepare a letter of immediate dismissal. Justified cause loss of confidence." "Understood, Doña Teresa." "Anything else?" "Yes. Put a note on his desk that says, 'This place is not for you.'" I want you to understand the message perfectly. After the calls, I stayed in the bathroom for a few more minutes, mentally organizing every move I would make. It wasn't revenge I was after. It was justice. For decades, I had built a business empire, sacrificed personal time, and worked 18-hour days to provide a comfortable life for my family. And my own daughter had just shown me that all that effort wasn't worth even her basic respect. I returned to the dining room with a serene smile that hid the storm inside me. The conversation continued without me, as if I'd never existed. "The real estate markets are very active," Eduardo commented, gesticulating with his glass of liquor. "Exactly," Alicia agreed enthusiastically. "That's why we believe a partnership between our companies could be very beneficial." Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. A partnership. They were planning a business alliance between my company, my life's work, and Eduardo's without even consulting me. "Partnership?" I asked in a controlled voice. Alicia looked at me as if she'd forgotten I was still there. "Oh yes, Mom. Eduardo and I have been discussing the possibilities of expanding the construction company." "Well, technically, I'm the CEO," she replied with a cocky smile I'd never seen on her face before. "Technically," I repeated, slowly savoring each syllable. "I understand," Eduardo chimed in with his deep, calculating voice. "Teresa, do you understand that modern business requires fresh approaches? Alicia has innovative ideas." "I'm sure you do," I replied, maintaining my outward composure while internally jotting down every word for future reckoning. My grandchildren had gone up to their rooms after dessert, oblivious to the drama unfolding among the adults. Rodrigo poured more liquor with mechanical movements, clearly uncomfortable, but not daring to intervene. "I think it's time for me to go," I finally announced, rising from the side chair I'd been relegated to. "Sure, Mom, rest," Alicia replied, without looking up from her liquor. He didn't even bother to walk me to the door. It was Sophia who came running down the stairs when she heard me leaving. "Are you leaving already, Grandma? I thought you'd be staying later like always." "No, my little one, I have important things to do tonight." "Are you angry about what happened at dinner?" My granddaughter's question struck a chord with me. Even a 10-year-old had noticed the unfairness of the situation. "I'm not angry, Sophia. I'm disappointed. But sometimes disappointments teach us important truths." "I don't understand." "You'll understand soon enough, my love. I love you so much. Always remember that." I left that house feeling strangely liberated. The cold December air filled my lungs as I walked toward my car. In the driver's seat before starting the engine, I took out my phone again. I had one last call to make. "Dr. Claudia Ramos, Notary. I'm Teresa Fuentes. I'm sorry to bother you on Christmas Eve, but I need to change my will tomorrow." "Yes, it's urgent, very urgent." As I drove home, a smile spread across my face for the first time all night. Alicia had played her cards right, believing she was in control of the situation. But she had forgotten one crucial detail. I was the one who had built the game board, and tomorrow she would discover the real rules. I arrived home around midnight, but sleep was the last thing on my mind. While the city celebrated Christmas, I prepared for the most important battle of my life. I turned on all the lights in my office and spread the legal documents I'd accumulated over 4 decades of work on Robles' desk. The first task was to thoroughly review the partnership agreements. I needed to confirm something I suspected. Alicia never had any real stake in the company. She was CEO by appointment, not by vested right. Her entire authority depended on my will, and that will had just changed radically. As I was flipping through folders and files, my phone rang. It was Luisa, my accountant. "Doña Teresa, I've been reviewing the accounts since we spoke. There's something you urgently need to know." "Tell me, Luisa." Alicia has been using the company's guarantees for personal expenses far greater than we imagined. The mansion you live in has a $1.2 million mortgage secured by you. The luxury car, $300,000. On corporate credit cards, you owe more than $500,000 in personal purchases. The information hit me like an anvil. Are you behind on any payments? Several? Without your collateral, the debt will be foreclosed immediately. The banks will begin foreclosure proceedings tomorrow. Perfect. Cancel all collateral at dawn. Are you sure that will ruin your financial situation? Luisa, my daughter, just ruined something much more valuable. Our relationship. Now she'll learn the consequences. After hanging up, I continued reviewing documents until I found what I was looking for. Alicia's employment contracts. My company, Fuentes Construcciones, paid her a monthly salary of $25,000 plus benefits. That included a company car premium health plan, entertainment expenses, and annual profit sharing. All of that would disappear in a few hours. At 3:00 a.m., I called Carolina. Boss, I haven't been able to sleep thinking about what you asked me to do. Do you really want me to do it? Carolina, do you trust my judgment after all these years? Of course, Doña Teresa. You lifted me out of poverty and gave me opportunities I never imagined. So trust me now. Alicia has crossed a line of no return. Go to the office early, clear out her personal belongings, and write that note exactly as I told you. At 4:00 a.m., I reviewed the financial statements for the past 5 years. What I discovered filled me with a mixture of anger and disappointment. Alicia had been diverting small amounts to personal accounts for years. Nothing illegal, but ethically reprehensible. He had used company contacts to secure private contracts. He had charged commissions for referring suppliers without informing me. My daughter didn't just disrespect me that night. She'd been systematically betraying my trust for years. At 5:00 a.m., I called Ricardo. Teresa, I have the documents you requested ready, but I must warn you this will have immediate legal consequences. Alicia could sue you for wrongful termination. Ricardo, I have evidence of embezzlement, misuse of corporate resources, and undisclosed conflicts of interest. Do you think she'll want to go to court? Understood? The documents will be ready by 8 o'clock. Perfect. Also prepare the paperwork to repossess the mansion. It was an anniversary gift, but it's registered as a family loan. I want it back. The mansion where he currently lives. Exactly. Let him learn to pay rent like any other person. At 6 a.m., while I was making coffee, I received a WhatsApp message from Diego, my grandson. Grandma, my mom is very nervous. She's been on the phone all night. Is everything okay? I answered, Everything will be fine, my love. Your grandmother loves you very much. At 7:00 a.m., it was time to make the most satisfying call of the entire transaction. Central Bank, this is Teresa Fuentes. I need to immediately cancel all the guarantees I have signed in the name of Alicia Fuentes. Yes, all of them. Mortgages, loans, credit cards, everything. Ms. Fuentes, that will mean that the payments will be immediately executed against the primary debtor. I know perfectly well. Go ahead. Very well, the cancellation documents will be processed within the hour. At 8:00 a.m., Ricardo arrived at my house with all the documents ready. I signed each piece of paper with iron determination. Cancellation of executive powers, revocation of banking authority, immediate dismissal from management duties, repossession of assets ceded as a family loan. Teresa, once you sign this, there's no going back. Ricardo, a few hours ago, my daughter pushed me to the floor in front of my grandchildren to give my spot to someone else. Do you think there's any way back? I signed the last document at 8:30. At 9:00, I called Carolina to confirm that everything was ready at the office. Boss, I've already removed all your things, the computer, the paintings, even the plant you had in the windowsill. Everything's in boxes in storage, and the note was placed exactly in the center of the desk as you requested. Perfect. When she arrives, let her in normally. Don't explain anything. Let her figure out the situation for herself. At 9:30, I received confirmation from Luisa. Doña Teresa, all the guarantees have been officially canceled. The banks will begin foreclosing at 10:00 a.m. At 10:05 a.m., I dressed in my best business suit. Today wasn't just any day. It was the day Alicia Fuentes would discover what the word consequences really meant. I poured myself a last cup of coffee and watched the sunrise from my office window. After a sleepless night, I felt strangely energized. There was no trace of sadness or grief, just a crystal-clear understanding of what needed to be done. My phone was on silent, but I could see the notifications piling up on the screen. Texts, missed calls, emails. The storm had begun. Alicia was about to wake up to the worst day of her life, and I would be waiting to see her reaction when she finally understood that actions have consequences, and that underestimating her mother had been the most costly mistake of her life. Alicia woke up that morning of December 25th with a strange feeling in her stomach. It wasn't the hangover from the previous night's liquor, but something deeper, as if her subconscious had picked up on danger signals that her conscious mind hadn't yet fully processed. Rodrigo was already up making coffee for the children. The atmosphere in the house was tense, charged with an invisible electricity that no one mentioned, but everyone felt. "Did you sleep well?" Rodrigo asked without looking at her directly. So, Alicia replied, checking her phone. She had 3 missed calls from unknown numbers, probably salespeople taking advantage of the holiday season. What she didn't know was that at that moment, while she was quietly having breakfast, several banks had already initiated collateral foreclosure procedures. Banking systems had automatically processed the cancellation of collateral during the early hours of the day. At 10:15, Alicia received the first real call. "Ms. Fuentes, this is Monica from Banco Santander. We urgently need you to contact us regarding your mortgage." "What's going on? My mortgage is completely current." "Ma'am, the principal collateral on your loan was paid off this morning. Without that collateral, the loan automatically becomes immediately due." Alicia felt as if someone had thrown ice water over her. "What guarantee? What are you talking about?" "The guarantee signed by Mrs. Teresa Fuentes. Without that guarantee, you must pay off the entire debt or will proceed with foreclosure." The call was cut off, and Alicia was left holding the phone trying to process the information. Before she could react, the phone rang again. "Ms. Alicia Fuentes, you're from the Bank of Mexico Risk Department. Your corporate line of credit has been suspended due to collateral cancellation. You must report to our offices immediately." He hung up, and the phone rang again. "Citi Banamex. Your business line of credit was blocked by..." Another call. "Banco Azteca, a preventive embargo procedure on..." And another one. "Regional Bank. Immediate execution of..." In 15 minutes, Alicia received exactly 40 calls from different banks, insurance companies, car dealerships, and corporate suppliers. Her financial world crumbled in real time as she stood in her kitchen, still in her pajamas. Rodrigo watched the scene with growing horror. "What's going on, Alicia? Why so many calls?" He murmured, but in the back of his mind, a terrible suspicion was beginning to form. His mother's words from the night before echoed in his memory. "Technically, I'm the CEO." At 11 in the morning, I decided to go immediately to the company. I needed to understand what was happening, and more importantly, I needed access to corporate resources to deal with the unexpected crisis. He drove his BMW X6 through the empty streets of Christmas City, unaware that it would be one of the last times he'd be behind the wheel of that vehicle. The agency had already received repossession orders for non-payment of the rent. He arrived at the Fuentes Construcciones building at 11:30. The security guard greeted her normally, showing no signs that anything had changed. Alicia took the elevator to the 10th floor, where her executive director office was located. As she exited the elevator, she noticed something strange. Carolina was in her office, sitting behind her desk, reviewing documents that clearly belonged to the executive files. "Carolina, what are you doing in my office?" Carolina raised her head with an uncomfortable but firm expression. "Good morning, Alicia. Well, this isn't your office anymore." "What do you mean, not my office? What are you talking about?" "Read the letter on the desk." Alicia walked over and saw placed dead center on the wooden surface a handwritten note in her mother's distinctive handwriting. "This place isn't for you." The words hit her like punches. It was the same phrase she'd used the night before, but now directed at her. She felt her knees go weak. "Carolina, this has to be a joke." "It's not a joke, Alicia. Doña Teresa appointed me executive director this morning. You have 5 minutes to collect your personal belongings from storage and leave the building." "This is impossible. I'm the CEO. I spent years building this company with my mother." "Not anymore, Alicia. The dismissal papers are officially filed. Justified cause, loss of trust, and conflict of interest." Alicia felt like the world was spinning around her. She took out her phone to call her mother, but before she could dial, Carolina handed her a sealed envelope. "Doña Teresa asked me to give this to you." With trembling hands, Alicia opened the envelope. Inside was a typewritten letter on company letterhead. "Alicia, the consequences of our actions sometimes come when we least expect them. Last night, you showed me that my place at your table no longer exists. Today, I show you that your place at my company no longer exists either. You have until noon to vacate any property in my name. The mansion, the car, everything. You'll learn to live on your own resources like you should have done years ago. Don't look for me, don't call me, don't try to find intermediaries. This decision is final and irrevocable. Your mother, who no longer recognizes you, Teresa Fuentes." Alicia read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. It wasn't just the job, it was everything. Her home, her car, her lifestyle, her financial security, everything had disappeared in a single morning. "Carolina, you have to help me. You've known my mother for years. This is temporary insanity." "Alicia, I saw what you did to him last night. My own son was outraged when I told him. Doña Teresa is the fairest woman I know, but also the most determined. Once she makes a decision, there's no turning back. But I'm his daughter, his only daughter. I was his daughter. Last night, you decided to be something else." Alicia left the corporate building like a sleepwalker. In the parking lot, she found a tow truck hooking up her BMW. The driver showed her a court order for repossession for non-payment. Wait, there must be a mistake." "There is no mistake, ma'am. The lease has expired and there are no warranties. The vehicle will be repossessed immediately." Alicia had to call a taxi, something she hadn't done in years. On the drive home, her phone rang non-stop. Banks, creditors, suppliers, all demanding immediate payments. When she finally arrived at the mansion, she found Rodrigo crying on the couch, holding a court order. "Alicia, we have 24 hours to leave the house. They're going to foreclose on the mortgage." "So what, your mom canceled all the collateral? We owe $1.2 million we don't have." Alicia slumped into a chair, completely defeated. In less than 12 hours, she had lost her job, her car, her house, and her financial stability. And worst of all, she had lost her mother. The words she had spoken the night before now echoed like a curse. "This place belongs to my mother-in-law. Move it." Now she was the one who was out of it all. Alicia spent the next 2 hours trying to process the magnitude of the disaster that had been unleashed on her life. Rodrigo alternated between crying fits and bitter accusations, while desperately packing the most valuable things they could take before the eviction. "This is your fault," she screamed as she packed jewelry into a suitcase. How could you be so stupid, pushing your own mother in front of the children? Rodrigo, calm down. This can be fixed. I just need to talk to her. Talk, Alicia. They took everything from us. The house, the car, your job. What are we going to tell my parents? That question hit Alicia like a slap in the face. Veronica and Eduardo Salazar, her in-laws, had witnessed the humiliation she had inflicted on Teresa. If there was one thing Veronica valued above all else, it was family respect and dignity. Alicia picked up her phone with trembling hands and dialed her mother-in-law's number. She needed support. She needed an ally. She needed someone to speak up for her. Veronica, it's Alicia. I need to speak to you urgently. The voice that answered was cold as winter ice. Alicia, I've been waiting for your call. Veronica, something terrible has happened. My mom lost her mind. She took everything from me over a minor family argument. I need your help. There was a prolonged silence that chilled her blood. Just a minor argument. Alicia, did you hear what you just said? Well, It was just a misunderstanding. You know how these things are between mothers and daughters. No, Alicia, I don't know, because I would never have disrespected my mother the way you did last night. Alicia felt panic beginning to take hold of her. Veronica, please, Rodrigo and the children need stability. I know you can understand. What I fully understand is that I witnessed a 42-year-old woman publicly humiliate the mother who gave her everything. I saw you push Teresa to the floor to give me a seat I never asked for or wanted. You thought I'd appreciate the gesture of respect. Respect, Alicia, respect isn't built by disrespecting others, especially your own mother. Alicia could hear the growing contempt in Veronica's voice. Her last resort was disappearing before her eyes. Veronica, we're family. Rodrigo is your son. The children are your grandchildren. Exactly. And that's why I can't allow my grandchildren to grow up thinking that behavior is acceptable. Rodrigo and the children will always have my support, but you, Alicia, have proven yourself untrustworthy. What do you mean? I mean anyone capable of treating their own mother that way is capable of betraying anyone. There will be no financial support from me. There will be no work at our companies. There will be no shelter in my home. Alicia felt her legs go weak. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Furthermore, I've decided to contact Teresa to offer her a personal apology for having been an involuntary witness to your deplorable behavior. Are you going to apologize to her? Of course. A woman of your stature didn't deserve such humiliation, especially in front of your family. And I'm also going to offer you a business partnership proposal. Veronica's words hit Alicia like a hammer blow. Not only had she lost her mother-in-law's support, but now Veronica was directly allying herself with her mother. Veronica, please reconsider. I've already reconsidered, Alicia, and my conclusion is clear. Teresa Fuentes is the kind of person I want to do business with. You know. The line went dead, leaving Alicia holding the silent phone. Rodrigo had heard the entire conversation from the doorway. Her face had lost all color. My mom isn't going to help us, she whispered. What are we going to do, Alicia? Where are we going to live? The children have school. I have my job. I don't know, Rodrigo. I just don't know. At that moment, Diego and Sofia came down the stairs, alerted by the agitated voices and the chaos of suitcases and boxes throughout the house. What's going on? Diego asked, with the concern of a teenager who senses his world is changing. Why is Dad crying? Sofia added in a small voice. Alicia looked at her children and felt a pang of shame deeper than anything she had experienced up to that moment. How could she explain to them that because of their pride and stupidity, all their family stability had vanished? Children, we need to talk. Rodrigo began, his voice heavy with shame. Is this because of what happened last night with Grandma? Diego asked directly. The question showed that even a 13-year-old boy understood the gravity of what had happened better than Alicia herself. Yes, son, that's why. Mom, why did you push Grandma? Sophia asked with tears in her eyes. She looked very sad. Alicia couldn't answer. The words stuck in her throat. Grandma loves us very much, Sophia continued. She's always bringing us gifts and telling us stories. Why were you mean to her? I thought what, Mom? Diego insisted. Because it seemed like you hated her. I don't hate her, grandmother, but you treated her like you hated her. Diego replied with a maturity that broke my heart. And now she must hate us too. No, son, she loves them. She would never hurt them. Then why can't we stay home? Why is Dad packing everything up? Alicia slumped onto the couch, completely defeated. Her own children were judging her, and they were right to be. Because Mom made a huge mistake, she finally admitted. A mistake that's going to change our lives. Can you apologize to Grandma? Sophia asked, with the innocence of a child who still believes adult problems can be solved with sincere apologies. It's too late for that, my love. Rodrigo came over and sat next to her for the first time all day. His voice held no reproaches, but rather a deep sadness. Alicia, I need you to understand something. The children and I are going to my parents' house. What? I can't continue with you after this. I can't be with someone who would humiliate his own mother like that. Rodrigo, we're a family. No, Alicia. A family is built on respect and values. You proved last night that you have neither. Alicia looked at her husband, her children, the suitcases, the eviction papers on the table. In 24 hours, she had destroyed her entire life because of a moment of stupid pride. And the worst part was that her mother was right. She had brought it on herself. The consequences had arrived, and they were far more devastating than she could have ever imagined. The afternoon of December 25th became the longest and most painful of Alicia's life. While Rodrigo meticulously packed the children's belongings, she desperately tried to find a solution to her catastrophic financial situation. Her bank accounts had been preemptively frozen due to outstanding debts. Her main credit cards had been blocked. The ATM even denied him the $500 he tried to withdraw from his personal account. In his wallet, he only had $1,200 in cash, all that remained of his previous financial life. Where are you going to sleep tonight? Rodrigo asked as he closed the children's last suitcase. I don't know. Maybe some cheap hotel until I can get myself together. Alice, look at me. Rodrigo stopped and confronted her directly. Do you really think you can reorganize yourself after this? Your mother isn't someone who acts on impulse. This was calculated to be permanent. She's my mom, Rodrigo. Eventually she'll have to forgive me. How would you forgive her if she had done what you did? Be honest with yourself, Alicia. Rodrigo's words cut deeper than any external reproach because they contained an undeniable truth. Teresa had been an exemplary mother, and Alicia had responded with ingratitude and contempt. At 6 p.m, the moving truck Rodrigo had hired to transport his things to his parents' house arrived. The children watched the removal of their toys and furniture with a silent, heartbreaking sadness. Is Mom coming with us? Sophia asked as she watched the porters carry in her doll collection. No, my love. Mom has to solve some problems first. When is she going to solve them? Rodrigo looked at Alicia with an expression that contained years of pent-up disappointment. We don't know, Sophia. Diego, more direct than a typical teenager, confronted his mother bluntly. Mom, are you going to lose your home because of what you did to Grandma? It's more complicated than that, son. It doesn't seem complicated to me. You were mean to her, and now she's being mean to you. It's like school. If you hit someone, you get punished. The brutal simplicity of Diego's observation showed that even a teenager understood the logic of cause and effect better than Alicia had understood the consequences of her actions. At 7 in the evening, Rodrigo finished loading all his and the children's things. The mansion, which hours before had been their family home, now seemed like an empty shell, with only the basic furnishings that belonged to the property. Alicia, I need you to sign these papers. Rodrigo handed her a folder of legal documents he'd prepared while she was searching for impossible financial solutions. What are they? Legal separation and temporary custody of the children. My lawyer prepared them this afternoon. Alicia felt like a knife was being stabbed in her stomach. Have you already seen a lawyer? Sure. Did you think I was going to wait and see how far you fell? I have to protect the children. Rodrigo, this is extreme. I just need time to... Why, Alicia? To find another rich mother you can betray. To get another mother-in-law whose sympathy you can win by humiliating your family. This isn't fair. Do you know it's not fair that my children had to watch their mother behave like a savage toward their grandmother? Do you know it's not fair that after 15 years of marriage, I discover my wife is capable of such cruelty? Alicia signed the papers with trembling hands. She had no alternative. Without financial resources, without a job, without a home, she couldn't offer stability to anyone. The children can visit you on weekends when you have a suitable place to accommodate them, Rodrigo said as he packed away the signed documents. When you prove yourself trustworthy again, if you ever can. At 8 in the evening, Alicia found herself alone in an empty mansion that was no longer hers, with $200 in cash and a suitcase of basic clothes. The rest of her things were in boxes in the company warehouse under Carolina's care. She went outside and wandered aimlessly through the city, decorated for Christmas. Families strolled happily. Children ran with new toys. Couples hugged against the December cold. Everyone seemed to have a home to return to, except for her. She found a modest hotel downtown where she could pay for a room for 3 nights $600. She had $600 left over for food and transportation. The room was small, with a double bed, a simple bathroom, and a window overlooking a busy street. He sat up in bed and contemplated the magnitude of his personal destruction. His phone rang. It was an unknown number. Alicia Fuentes. Yes, I'm Dr. Pedro Vargas of the Vargas & Associates law firm. Your mother has hired me to officially notify you that any attempt at direct or indirect contact with her will be considered harassment. What Doña Teresa was very clear. She doesn't want to receive calls, messages, visits, or intermediaries from you. Any violation of this instruction will result in a court-ordered restraining order. But is she my mother, Mrs. Fuentes? Legally, Doña Teresa has the right to decide with whom she maintains a relationship. Her decision is final. The call ended, leaving Alicia with the final understanding that her mother had not only punished her financially, but had completely cut off any possibility of reconciliation. She looked at herself in the hotel bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her seemed to have aged 10 years in a day. Deep, dark circles under her eyes, disheveled hair, wrinkled clothes. She looked exactly like what she was, someone who had lost everything through her own stupidity. That night, as she tried to sleep in an unfamiliar bed, Alicia reflected on the 24 hours that had completely changed her life. Just 2 days ago, she had been the CEO of a thriving company. She lived in a mansion, drove a luxury car, had a stable family, and was respected by her community. Now she was homeless, jobless, familyless, resourceless, and with no foreseeable future, all because of a moment of hubris that lasted less than 30 seconds. The words she'd spoken echoed in her mind like a curse. This place belongs to my mother-in-law. Move. Now she was the one who was out of it all. 3 months had passed since the Christmas disaster. Alicia's life had transformed into something she'd never imagined possible. After the money ran out, she had to face the reality of having no more resources. With her name tarnished in the market, no construction company would hire her. Her only recourse was to accept a job as a receptionist at a small medical clinic earning minimum wage. She rented a room in a boarding house in the suburbs where she shared a bathroom and kitchen with 3 other women. The space was so small it barely fit her single bed and a wardrobe. The designer clothes and jewelry she managed to save were sold to pay the first few months' rent. Now she wore simple clothes bought at high street stores. The most painful thing wasn't the material loss, but the separation from his children. Rodrigo had been granted full custody, allowing only supervised visits once a week. During their initial encounters, Diego refused to speak to her, responding only with monosyllables to her attempts at conversation. Sophia cried, begging to return home to her mother, not fully understanding why they couldn't be together. One March afternoon, while waiting in the park for her weekly meeting with the children, Alicia spotted her mother in the distance. Teresa walked elegantly alongside Veronica Salazar, the two engaged in animated conversation. The shock of seeing them together, seemingly developing a genuine friendship, paralyzed her. From her hiding place behind a tree, Alicia overheard snatches of their conversation. "The new project downtown is moving forward quickly," Teresa said enthusiastically. "Your experience in real estate development was exactly what we needed. Teresa, working with you has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career." "We should have partnered years ago," Veronica responded. "How are Diego and Sophia?" Veronica asked after a moment. "They're extraordinary children," Teresa responded with warmth in her voice. "Resilient, intelligent. I'm trying to spend more time with them now to make up for lost time." "And Alicia?" Veronica's question made Alicia catch her breath. Teresa remained silent for a few moments. "I haven't heard anything directly. Rodrigo tells me he's working, he has a place to live. I hope she's learning what she needs to learn." "Have you ever thought about forgiving her?" "Veronica, it's not about forgiveness, it's about consequences. Forgiveness is easy, but if I were to rescue her from this situation, what lesson would she learn that she can treat people like disposable objects and then go back as if nothing ever happened? What kind of example would that set for Diego and Sophia? I see your point, but until when? Until she proves she's truly changed, not with words, but with consistent actions over time." Alicia walked away silently, her mother's words echoing in her mind. For the first time, she understood that what Teresa was seeking wasn't revenge, but a genuine transformation of character. And that transformation wouldn't come from desperate pleas or attempts at emotional manipulation, but from authentic personal growth. When Diego and Sophia arrived for the meeting, accompanied by a social worker, Alicia greeted them with a different attitude. Instead of trying to explain or justify what had happened, she simply asked about their lives, their schools, their interests. She listened attentively when Diego told her about his science project and genuinely applauded when Sophia showed her the drawings she had made. At the end of the meeting, Diego surprised her with a direct question. "Mom, are you going to try talking to Grandma someday? I'd really like to, son, but that decision isn't just up to me. Grandma said you need to learn some important lessons first." "And she's right, Diego. I need it." "What lessons?" Sophie asked curiously. Alice thought carefully before answering. "Lessons about respect, about consequences, about valuing the people who truly care about us. Lessons I should have learned a long time ago." Over the next few months, Alicia embraced her new reality with surprising determination. Not only did she fulfill her duties at the clinic, but she also volunteered to take on additional duties, arriving early and leaving later. Her dedication impressed Dr. Rodriguez, the clinic's owner, who gradually began to entrust her with greater responsibilities. "Alicia, you've completely transformed the way this reception works," he commented after 6 months. "I'm thinking of promoting you to administrative manager." "Thank you, doctor. I really appreciate this opportunity." The pay raise allowed her to rent a small one-bedroom apartment. It was simple, but clean, and decent, a place where she could finally welcome her children unsupervised. On the walls, she hung photos of Diego and Sofia, not in expensive frames like before, but in simple picture frames she had decorated herself. One Sunday afternoon, almost a year after the Christmas incident, Alicia received an unexpected call from Rodrigo. "Alicia, I need to tell you something." "Your mom called me." Her heart raced. "What did she say? How were you feeling? If you were okay, if you had found a stable job? And what did you reply?" "The truth is, you've worked hard. You live in a small but decent place. You've been punctual and responsible with the children's visits." How did he react? He was silent for a while. Then he said, "Maybe he is learning." "Alice, I think it's time you wrote to him." "Right." But his lawyer made it clear that I shouldn't try to make contact. A letter. A single letter with no expectations. No demands, just showing who you've become after all this. That night, Alicia sat at her tiny kitchen table and began writing the most important letter of her life. These weren't empty apologies or grandiose promises, but an honest account of her inner journey. "Dear Mom," she began. "I don't know if you'll read this letter or if it'll end up in the trash unopened. It doesn't matter. I need to write it anyway, not to change your mind, but so you know that your daughter finally understood the most valuable lesson you've spent my entire life trying to teach me." She described her year of transformation not as an unfair punishment, but as a necessary process of growth. She spoke of her work at the clinic with pride, not shame. She spoke of her small apartment as an achievement, not a humiliation. "For the first time in my life, I'm living off my own efforts, not your sacrifices. I'm experiencing the true value of honest work of respect, earned through merit, not position or money. I'm learning to be a real mother, cherishing every minute with Diego and Sofia, not outsourcing them to nannies while chasing status and power." At the end of the letter, Alice was direct about her expectations. "I am not writing expecting immediate reconciliation. I know that trust once broken takes a long time to rebuild, if it can ever be fully restored. I'm writing just to let you know that your actions, however painful, served their purpose. They transformed me, and for that, I thank you. With love, though perhaps undeserved, your daughter, Alicia." 2 weeks later, while organizing files at the clinic's reception desk, Alicia received a plain envelope delivered by courier. There was no return address, but she immediately recognized her mother's elegant handwriting. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope and found a small card. "Alice, I received your letter. I'm closely monitoring your changes. Keep going like this. Maybe one day we can talk in person. I'm not ready yet, but the door isn't completely closed anymore. Teresa." It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was hope. A small crack of light in a door that Alice had thought was closed forever. And for the first time in a year, she cried not out of despair or self-pity, but out of genuine gratitude for having lost everything, and in the process, having found something far more precious: dignity. 2 years have passed since the night that turned Alicia's life upside down. The woman who once paraded in luxury salons and ran a multi-million-dollar company now walked contentedly through the halls of the clinic where she had become the administrative manager. Her small one-bedroom apartment had been transformed into a cozy home, simply but tastefully decorated, reflecting her new identity. Diego, now 15, and Sofia, 12, spent alternating weekends with her. Their relationship had completely transformed. Instead of trying to impress them with expensive gifts or extravagant outings, Alicia now cooked with them, played board games, helped with homework, and most of all, really listened to what they had to say. "You know," Mom, Diego commented over a simple dinner they had prepared together. "You look different." "Different how?" Alicia asked, genuinely curious. "More present. Before you were always on the phone, always talking about meetings, always in a hurry. Now you really do seem happy." The remark took her by surprise. Happy. Was it possible she, who had lost everything she once considered important, now experienced a more authentic happiness than she had ever known in her previous life? "I think so, son." Happy in a different, truer way. One Sunday in December, almost on the eve of the second anniversary of the incident, Alicia received a call from Rodrigo. "Alicia, your mom contacted me. She wants to see you." Her heart almost stopped. "When?" "This afternoon at the Central Cafe at 4. "Are you going?" "Of course I am." Alicia dressed carefully, choosing simple but elegant clothes, nothing ostentatious, nothing reminiscent of the old Alicia. He arrived at the cafe 15 minutes before the appointed time, his heart beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. Teresa walked in punctually at 4. At 70, she still radiated that unique blend of strength and elegance that had always characterized her. Her eyes scanned the cafe until they found Alicia, and for a moment the two just stared at each other, separated by 2 years and an abyss of pain and transformation. "Thank you for coming," Teresa said, sitting across from her daughter. "Thanks for calling me." An awkward silence fell between them. So many things to say, where to start. "How's work going at the clinic?" Teresa finally asked. "It's going well. I was promoted to administrative manager 6 months ago. It's a job that gives me purpose, you know, helping people when they're vulnerable, making sure they're treated with dignity." Teresa nodded, studying her daughter's face closely. "And the apartment's small, but adequate. I decorated the spare room for Diego and Sofia on the weekends. They chose the colors, helped put together the shelves. It was fun." Another silence, less tense this time. "Why did you call me Mom?" Teresa took a sip of her coffee before answering. "I've been watching you, Alicia. Not directly, of course, but through Rodrigo, the children people we know in common. For the past 2 years, I've waited for a sign that that night had really changed something in you. Not just your outward situation, but something deeper." "And what did you conclude?" "That maybe, just maybe, my daughter has actually learned something valuable from that terrible experience." Teresa paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I didn't call you here to offer you your old job back, or to restore your access to family resources." "I didn't expect that," Alicia replied truthfully. "In fact, I don't even know if I would accept it." Teresa raised an eyebrow in surprise. "You wouldn't accept it? I don't know if I'm the same person who could deal with that world again. I've learned to value different things now." A small smile appeared at the corner of Teresa's lips. "That's exactly what I came to personally verify. If the change was genuine or just a facade until things returned to normal." "Normal," Alice laughed softly. "What's normal now, right? My life has changed so much that sometimes I barely recognize the person I was before. I hope for the best." "Definitely. Painful, yes, extremely. Necessary, absolutely." Teresa reached across the table, not to touch Alicia, but as a gesture of openness. "I'm thinking about starting a new project, a foundation to support women in vulnerable situations. Women who need to rebuild their lives from scratch, like you did." "That would be wonderful." Alicia responded, genuinely impressed. Perhaps you could help? Teresa suggested, carefully observing her daughter's reaction. Not as an executive or director, but as someone who has lived through it and can guide other women. Alicia's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't an offer of a return to their previous status. It was something far more valuable. The opportunity to transform their own pain into purpose. I'd love to, she replied with a heavy voice. More than any position or salary, that would be a genuine honor. Teresa nodded, satisfied. It won't be paid, at least not at first. It would be voluntary, a few hours a week. Perfect. I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to use this as a gateway back into the house. Exactly what I needed to hear. They talked for another hour, not about the painful past, but about the possible future. When they said goodbye, there were no hugs or emotional declarations of love, just a respectful handshake and the promise of a future meeting to discuss the details of the foundation. Walking back to her small apartment, Alicia felt a serenity she had never experienced before. The reunion with her mother hadn't been a magical return to the past, nor an instant healing of all her wounds. It had been the first step on a new journey, one based on mutual respect and shared values, not on financial dependence or family obligations. In the months that followed, Alicia continued her work at the clinic during the day and dedicated 2 nights a week to the foundation's project. Teresa and she developed a different relationship, more like a respectful partnership than the old mother-daughter pattern. It wasn't what Alicia would have imagined 2 years earlier, but somehow it was more authentic and healthy. The table invited Alicia and the children to dinner at their home. When Alicia arrived, she noticed the table was set for 7. Who else is coming? She asked, feeling a slight knot in her stomach as she remembered the past. Veronica and Eduardo accepted my invitation, Teresa replied matter-of-factly, and Rodrigo will come too. Alicia felt a wave of anxiety. Are you sure this is a good idea? After all, that's exactly why it's important, Teresa replied firmly. We need to show children that adults can overcome differences, can learn from mistakes, and can rebuild broken relationships with respect and dignity. When Veronica arrived accompanied by Eduardo, there was a moment of palpable tension. But the woman who had once witnessed Teresa's humiliation approached Alicia with a direct and sincere gaze. Welcome, Alicia. Your mom told us about your work at the foundation. It's impressive. Thank you, Veronica. We're still at the beginning, but we've already managed to help some women start over. Just like you started over, Veronica observed. It wasn't a question, but a respectful observation. The dinner passed without the glamour or ostentation of times past, but with an authenticity that had never existed before. When it was time to sit down at the table, Teresa looked at Alicia with a neutral expression. Alice, where would you like to sit? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Everyone present knew the story. Everyone understood the weight of that moment. Alice looked at the available seats and smiled softly. Anywhere is fine with me, Mom. The important thing isn't where we sit, but being together, don't you think? Teresa nodded, a look of approval crossing her face. Well said, very well said. That night, there were no discussions about business mergers or partnerships. There were conversations about the foundation's work, Diego and Sophia's school projects, books, and movies. A normal family conversation, something they had ironically never really had. Later, when everyone had left, and Alicia was helping Teresa organize the kitchen, her mother asked her the question that had been implicit throughout the evening. Are you happy, Alicia, with your life as it is now? Alicia stopped drying a plate and reflected sincerely. I'm at peace, Mom, more than ever. I have fewer things, but more purpose. Less status, but more self-respect. Less power, but more meaning. Teresa smiled a genuine smile that reached her eyes. So, you've really learned the lesson I was hoping you would. Which one that life isn't about having the most important seat at the table. It's about deserving your place, whatever it may be. Alicia hugged her mother for the first time in 3 years. A cautious, respectful, but sincere hug. Thank you, she whispered. Not for what you took from me, but for what you allowed me to find. When Alicia returned to her small apartment that evening, she sat down on the modest sofa and looked around. The walls lined with photos of her children, the books on the simple shelves, the few decorative objects chosen with care, not ostentation. This was her world now. Smaller, simpler, but infinitely more meaningful. He had lost a business, a mansion, a luxury car, and his social status. But he had found something far rarer and more valuable: authentic dignity, genuine purpose, and the ability to love without expectations or conditions. The slap on the Christmas table had turned her world upside down, but in the process, it had put everything exactly where it should be. If you liked this story, don't forget to leave your comment about what you would have done in Teresa's place. Would you have acted the same way, or would you have chosen a different path? And if you were in Alicia's place, would you have been able to accept the consequences and transform them into personal growth? Subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming and learning like this one. Your opinion is very important to us.